Well, hello YouTubers. It was 20 years ago today. No, it wasn't really. It was more like 30 years ago today. And 30 years ago today, it was 20 years ago today. And so that in total makes it 50 years ago today. Well, of course it's not today, but it's fairly accurate though. What am I talking about? Well, of course, those of you who have some clue about pop history and who's also maybe checking the background here, seeing some weird albums with a certain group from Liverpool, you know that I'm talking about the Beatles, Sgt Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And I'm going to talk a few words about that. First of all, I'm sure you know that there has been a new mix issued and in different kinds of formats, and DVD and CD and vinyl. The vinyl edition here is a double vinyl, and the extra vinyl contains outtakes, and that's very nice. I wasn't really sure that I was going to get it, but and this is the reason. First here we have a mono issue from 1967. I found it in a flea market and it's in quite horrible shape, but it's still a mono edition from 1967. Then this is a Dutch issue. I think it is from the 70s. It comes from the blue box, you know, the Beatles collection, the blue box that I bought on a record fair some years ago. Stereo, of course. Then we have this Dutch issue, and this is the one that I bought back in 1987. I'm going to talk a bit later about that. Sorry. That's one. That's the one. And then we have this one. This is from the mono box from 2014, I think. I think this is probably my favorite edition because Sgt Pepper sounds better in mono. That's my opinion. Anyway, you don't have to share it with me. And this is from the 2012 box, European pressing, also incredibly good sound. And then of course the 50th anniversary edition that I got some days ago, and that has recently been issued, and many others have already talked about it here in the YouTube vinyl community, but I thought since this has been quite an important record for me, I should make a video about it as well. I have been talking about Sgt Pepper in many videos before. I remember one that I did from my balcony where I talked about it, but let's have a closer look at this then from my perspective. Well, first of all, when I was a kid in the 80s, I'm born in the late 1974, so my earliest musical references, they were like Elvis, my mother's Elvis records from that I listened to in the late 70s, I guess. And but I knew about the Beatles, although we didn't really have any Beatles albums at my home. But I remember that they were played on the radio. There were shows on TV. They showed old clips when they were like the young mop top Beatles, when they were playing "She Loves You," yeah, 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 and so on. Beatles was being played on the radio constantly. So of course I knew who the Beatles were. And then in the 1987 we had a new format called CD, compact disc, unless you forgot about that. In 1987, that was 20 years after the issue of Sgt Pepper, it was about to be issued on compact disc. I'm not really sure. I think this is the case. I may be wrong here, but I think it was the first official CD issue of the Beatles was Sgt Pepper in 1987. Not entirely sure, but I think so. It was among the first anyway, because there were lots of talk about, okay, they sing on this record, it was 20 years ago today, now it is 20 years later, and now it's been issued on CD. The format of the future, of course. Well, so then they also showed an interesting documentary about the Sgt Pepper album on Swedish television, and I remember seeing it. I was well, it was 30 years ago, so I was 12 years old then, and I thought, well, this is really interesting. I really need to get this album and listen to it. So when I got my next monthly money, my monthly money, we get a little amount every month, amount of money every month. Try to say that fast 10 times. Then I went to the local Åhléns store and to their record where they sold records, and I got an issue of Sgt Pepper, the one I showed here earlier. Was it this one? Yeah, this one. And well, first of all, I was amazed by all the things. I mean, it's a kind of cover that you can watch forever. Back then, I didn't know who most of these people were on the sleeve. Yeah, Oliver Hardy I probably recognized, and of course that there were wax figures of the Beatles and so on. Who could have more? Who can it be more? Who can it be? Yeah, we got Stan Laurel there too. Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was a fun thing that suddenly all of them had mustaches, and on the cutout, you could even cut out this little mustache and stick it up your nostrils and like wear a fake mustache if you want that. Can't imagine that would be very nice, but anyway. When I first got this album and started looking through the titles, I was a bit surprised that I didn't really know about any of these songs. I've heard quite a lot of Beatles played on the radio, but the only song I think that I knew before I got the Sgt Pepper album was When I'm 64, and that sticks out a bit because it was recorded a bit earlier and maybe not the most typical song of this album. So, yeah. Starts with Sgt Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and they had some crowd noises, and I first thought, oh, it's a live album. I didn't expect that. I was easily fooled back then, so I thought at first, oh, a live album. And then they play these horns. Well, I didn't know that much about studio musicians and so on. So I thought, well, I didn't know that the Beatles played horns as well. You know, yeah. With little help from my friends, it took some years until I knew that it was Ringo Starr who sang it. Loose in the Sky with Diamonds. Didn't know anything about LSD back then. Well, that's good. I was 12 years old, mind you. Then Getting Better. Yeah, Fixing a Hole, She's Leaving Home. Being for the benefit of Mr. Kite. With and Without You. I think that was one of the first times I really had listened to Indian music. Not the first time really, because I remember sometimes, I think it was probably a record by Ravi Shankar being played on our record player, some record that maybe my mother or anyone had borrowed to listen to. Not sure, but I knew I'd heard these sitars before. Yeah, then I thought it was quite an annoying track back then, but today I like it. I like it. Even though it's not really Beatles, it's like, yeah, George Harrison and a bunch of nice Indian musicians there. Yeah, then When I'm 64, of course, Lovely Rita Mita Maid, Good Morning, Sgt Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band reprise, and A Day in the Life. So, I listened to this many times when I was a kid and started appreciating all the tracks in different ways. Um, Today, it's very difficult to pick out one track that I like more than the others, but there are some tracks that I think don't really get the attention that they deserve, like Getting Better. I think that's one of these tracks where I think the Beatles really sound like what I expected the Beatles to sound like, with nice vocals and well, a good song too. And also, in later years, I've been really enjoying this. You get both Paul McCartney's and John Lennon's personality. We got Paul McCartney's sunshine, happy, positive. It's getting better every time. And we got John Lennon's more sarcastic. It can't get no worse. I like that. That appeals to me a lot. Yeah. I don't know really if I have anything new to say about this record, other than I think all the songs are very good. Although I do not think it is the Beatles' best. Revolver is still my absolute favorite when it comes to the Beatles albums, but it is still a great album. Some might say that it is a bit overrated because... Oh, I thought it was thunder. It was just a car. Yeah. Oh, thunder's coming. I better wrap this up soon, quite fast now. Some keep saying, "Oh, it's an overrated album," and so on. Some people refuse to say, "Oh, it's just crap." But it's a bit of stubbornness. They haven't really listened to it and understood what it's all about. John Lennon has been talking, well, this Sgt Pepper nonsense, that was Paul's idea, and it, although the Sgt Pepper theme really ends with Billy Shears and a little help from my friends, and then after that we don't really hear anything about Sgt Pepper. If they hadn't put in this short reprise in the on side 2 before A Day in the Life, then it all holds together. And it works, as John Lennon said, it works because we say it works. That's why it works. Yeah, so... so, happy birthday, happy 50th anniversary, Sgt Pepper. And I can say to myself, happy birthday as a Sgt Pepper fan. You've been enjoying this album now for 30 years. And well, you can show. Well, I have CD version of 2, so well, but I have 6 different vinyl versions, and all of them, well, all of them fill some sort of purpose in my record shelf. So I'm happy about them. And I have to say, I was a bit reluctant though whether I would buy this new mix or not. But then, of course, the idea of getting to hear these outtakes, it was a bit exciting, I think. Even if some of the outtakes are merely like very basic background tracks without any vocals, like with little help from my friends, that's mainly just like bass, drums, and She's Leaving Home is like an instrumental track just, and the same with Within Without You, just the Indian instrumentals. But it is still quite fun to listen to, and also I like listening to these chatter between the Beatles members before and during the tracks, or before or after the tracks. They say these little comments while they're recording, and sounds like they're actually enjoying themselves, unlike the Trogs and the Trogs tapes that I listened to quite recently. And I never heard that word being repeated so many times before, the F word, you know. Well, so luckily it never got that far with the Beatles, not even during the Sgt Pepper or later, even if they probably would like to say a bit bad things about each other. But anyway, I'm going to finish this video now and say, well, happy birthday, Sgt Pepper. May your band keep on playing. I forgot one thing that I would like to add. Well, most of you know how the Sgt Pepper album ends with this locked groove, with this gibberish. It actually took. I had had the album for 10 years before I knew about this, because back in then I had these semi-automatic turntable that lifted the needle before the needle reached the locked groove. So, and of course, back then you didn't really read that much about these things, and so I didn't know anything about it until I bought my first totally manual turntable back in 1997. That's 20 years. That's 20 years ago, but not today. It was in the autumn. Anyway, so that's the first time I heard this locked groove, because I hadn't had a clue that locked groove existed, because I hadn't had the opportunity to listen to it before. It may not be the best track of the album though, but it lasts a very long time. But you don't really want to listen to it that long. Not even backwards. You like Superman. Anyway, bye bye.